welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful. I am back in the studio. This will be episode 12 of my French journal series, and we are slow stitching 2 more spine covers. And in the last video that's uploading now, I actually did some real-time stitching of this portion of my first one that I'm working on with some cantha stitch. And I had an idea what I thought I was going to do with it, and then I also moved on to the next one. So I kind of just want to show you, I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit more. I'm going to show you where I left off and then kind of randomly start talking about what I think I'm going to do, maybe do a little stitching or not. And then I had a couple of things just kind of unrelated. One's jewelry related and one's a kind of giveaway related that I'm hoping to remember to cover at the end. Because if you watch my channel, you know I work on a lot of different things. I sometimes take big breaks in between because I'm maybe gone traveling or at the other studio or just working on something that I'm not recording. Working on jewelry again. I'm really trying to get back into that, and so that's kind of a little bit what I'm going to share today. So if you're interested in kind of the other things I'm working on and a giveaway, then stay tuned until the very end, or fast forward till the very end so you can see what else is going on here. So welcome if you're brand new. I'm in the middle of a series. Like I said, this will be number 12. And so there will be the link to the playlist so that you can watch from the beginning, and then also any kind of products and little things that I may share, other creators' channels, links to other videos that might be interesting that are related to this, that sort of thing. So moving forward, I wanted to share where I'm at on these 2. I'm trying to work on them simultaneously so that they're finished about the same time, and I'll feel like I'm kind of getting through them faster. So I started with this one. I wanted to put a backing. I had said because I like, rather than just one thin layer of cotton fabric, it's kind of a weightier texture, not quite quilted because there's no batting in between, but you get that kind of feel, so that when I glue this onto my back cover, it has a little bit more body to it and just has a little bit more of that texture. It's easier to work on since we're not using a hoop. We're doing slow stitching, and so it can be messy, and you can just add all kinds of things to it. So if you didn't catch the last 2 videos ago, I'll just give you a peek. This is what it'll end up, something like this, with just really kind of a collage work of stitching and maybe adding other fabrics and little beads and that sort of thing, just to make it a really beautiful, interesting cover. So I'm going to put that one aside. That's the one that is I'm working on the insides of that one now. And so I will hopefully have a video soon of where I'm heading as far as working on the insides for those of you who want to do the journaling papercraft part of this. So I have basted both of these pieces. I did that on camera, and then I started doing my cantha stitch. I had mentioned on this one that I was going to maybe use this chandelier and do just kind of a silhouette outlining of the chandelier, maybe do the chain and that sort of thing, and then maybe add some color for what would be these hanging down beads. I still kind of like that idea, except that I had forgot I had this black smudge that it's not really horrible, but it looks kind of dirty right here. And so I'm thinking what I might do, because I still like the chandelier idea, is maybe I do kind of a vine and flowers, something to kind of cover up this part of the chandelier, but maybe leave the idea of the chandelier by maybe still outlining and doing these tassel-y kind of beads in a color. I'm not sure, and it may end up being way too busy. So I'm gonna kind of hold off on that until later. And because I know I want to do a lot with her dress, and that may be enough. I may decide I just want a simple little spray of flowers here in the corner, because you have to remember this is going to get wrapped around a book. And you'll see me constantly do this. I do this whenever I'm working on something. I want to have the book it's going to go on nearby. That way, as I'm doing things, I make sure that this strip you're going to see on its own, not seeing these 2 sides, will look how evenly dispersed in my embroidery or my embellishment. Same with this piece. Now this, you see, I only really see that chandelier. I see her hand, which, you know, I had talked about maybe making these vines with flowers instead of her arms. And I see part of her dress. But this is not going to make sense if I kind of leave it looking like dress and arm and chandelier. It's a cut off picture and it kind of doesn't really make sense. So having this be kind of a floral spray of flowers that's going to cover up that mess there, it gives this corner interest on its own without knowing it's part of a chandelier or part of any kind of picture. So that would look nice, you know, to just do that spray of flowers kind of on its own and have it wrap over to this part. And that would make it interesting also on just the spine. So you kind of want to keep that in mind when you're doing the spine cover, is how it's going to look from just this side. Now I have flowers and different things here that if I'm trying to do it to be part of a skirt, it would kind of make sense. But I need to think of it not as a skirt, if that makes sense to you. I just want it to look interesting from the front. And I want it to look interesting from here. And I want it to look interesting from the back again. So if I stick too pictorial to that it's a dress, it's going to look weird because it's a cut off part. So I want to keep in mind as I'm designing this, maybe a nod to the fact that this is a woman on the spine because you're going to see this part of her body. But on this part of her dress, I want it to look like a design that fits as a dress as a whole if you had the book opened up, but at the same time that it doesn't look like just a corner of a dress from the front or the back, if that makes any sense. So it's kind of, you're thinking of two things at once. So that's in my mind, and I'm just sharing that with you as you're trying to design something. You can totally ignore the fact that there's a girl on here and just do whatever you want, vines that go up straight and flowers on it, and call that good. You'll still see her peeking through on the spine, but it's just ignoring the fact that you have this picture here that you're trying to embellish. So don't embellish the picture, maybe create a design irregardless of whatever the picture is, okay? I hope that makes sense to you, but I'm trying to keep that in the back of my mind as I'm working on this. So with that in mind, I decided, because I don't really know what's going to go on here, that I would skip the whole cantha stitch because I might, like I did here, and kind of go forward not knowing where this is headed, okay? With that in mind, I decided to do the whole rest of this with a hidden stitch instead. That way I'm not busying up my background too much. I don't mind about this at all because it was wallpaper and I really liked that I added texture. But this side is still kind of an unknown for me. It might lean somewhat to its picture and then also veer away from that. So I'll show you from the back because I didn't do any of this on camera. But to do a hidden stitch, you might want to use something that's a nondescript color. It could even just be white. I went ahead and I just grabbed something that was on my table, and I had this thread, which is a little thicker than I needed to do a hidden stitch. I would suggest just using all-purpose sewing thread because it's finer and your stitches aren't going to show. I don't really care if they show or not too much. It really just kind of gives you from the front that quilted effect. So I think what I might do, just so you can see what I'm talking about a little better, is I'm going to go ahead, since I have stitched this whole thing, even though it doesn't really look like it from the front, I'm going to go ahead and remove my basting stitch that we put in. That was just using this instead of pins. Remember, we kind of talked about it. Now I have to be careful because I may have caught one of my cantha stitches in the fibers of this thread, and I think I did. So I want to actually cut this. You could see that some of them I had to go over or under my basting thread, and if you happen to catch that and split your basting thread, it'll get stuck like that, and then just cut it off. You can reuse this again for another basting project, or if you've damaged it kind of like I just did, you might just toss it and start over. So it's easier. You see how easy this is to pull out because I used a thicker thread. This is like an upholstery button thread. So if I had used all-purpose thread, it's a little finer and might get a little stuck in there. So thicker thread is easier to remove. And now you can see I don't have any of that basting thread there anymore. And you don't see, because I used a hidden stitch, but you can kind of see a little pucker here or there. So it has that kind of quilted look. but it's with a hidden stitch. So to do that, you're going to take, you'll start from the back. You see my knot here. You'll take a stitch and then you go back in just the tiniest amount. Okay, and then I went very far. Maybe this is 3/4 of an inch in my case. It kind of depends on how long your needle is. You're just going to go kind of a distance and then do another one. Now this stitch you see a little bit more, but my next one is here and you hardly see it at all. So you're taking a long stitch to the back and then the tiniest stitch you can from the front. And I'm just go in rows. In this case, I went up and down and about, you know, a distance apart. Doesn't really matter. It's not going to show. And you can see over here, I ran out of thread, and because my cantha kind of went all the way to here, I'm not too worried about this. It's going to stay together enough. You know, in a perfect world, I'd have a couple more stitches here, but I'm not worried about it because I know I'm going to end up doing some kind of decorative thing, and it's at least held together. So now this is kind of my base. So it's my digital fabric that I printed, and then one layer of just the same cotton fabric that's just unprinted, just to give me some weight to that to work on. So that one's ready to start some fun things. And then on this one, I wanted to vary it up just so that you can see this was the same digital and it laid out this way. And in the last video, I cut these to fit my spine. And when I did this one, I don't know if you caught it, but I measured how much I wanted this way, but I did not measure the length of my book, which was a little bit smaller. So off camera, I went ahead and trimmed that to where I wanted it. And now it fits the smaller book that I need the spine cover for. So again, same thing. I'll keep this book handy so that I always can kind of see what I'm going to see just on the spine and then what will be on just the front, which is just going to be part of this rose and some leaves. So I want to add, you know, just some interest into here. I don't mind that this is going to look, I like my flowers, you know, even if I did flowers here, I like them to wrap around that corner. The only thing you have to be careful of is if you're going to add buttons like we did in the last one. I did the same thing here. I always have my book handy because I didn't want to put a button or anything that is going to be on the actual corner. You wanted to make sure any buttons or raised things, see this one's close to the edge and so is this one, but that I didn't have them sitting on that corner. So it just kind of, you know, you're going to always be referring back to the parts of your spine. The other thing that you can do if you don't want to have to keep fitting it, but I really like doing that. The other thing you could do is just draw a line where your spine hits, and that way as you're working, you'll always know where your spine is. If you draw that line, you want to use something erasable, and that's this Pilot friction pen, and it's an erasable pen. I'm going to actually do a little demonstration. I've got my iron hot, I think. We'll get it going there just to show you. But this will be erased with heat. So even if you're going to draw a line where just for a visible thing, I don't really work that way, but it, you know, it's an option that you have. You can get rid of that line if it doesn't get covered up with embroidery by just heat, and it will erase that line. So I'll do a little demo of that in a minute if I remember. So here's my shorter one, and I wanted to do again all my stitching so that it's stitched down, and I didn't do that on camera because I used really basically the same stitch that I did in the cantha. I just did them further apart. So I'm going to do the same thing and pull this basting out so that it's not distracting you. And I had to use 2 threads because I ran short. But you see how easy this is to pull out because it's this nice thick thread. And I took such large stitches. So get rid of that. And now you can see my cantha stitch better. So I did 2 different colors. I used the same little sagey green, which is, these are all DMC, and this is 647 was the number that I used. And I'll share whenever I know the color. Some of mine I've purchased at thrift stores, so I don't know the color if they were already off of their little skein. But whenever I have it, I'll share it with you, especially because I'm using one with my digitals. Then you'll know, if you're printing them out, you'll know the colors work. Now, again, you have to remember that this digital is does not look the same as if it was printed on white fabric, because I printed it on tan fabric. So it does make the colors a little bit more antique looking. Okay, so I took and did the cantha stitch, but I did them all farther apart. So I did, you know, probably a 1/8 to 1/4 inch stitch. And then I took a bigger gap that was maybe 2 or 3 times that, and then did another stitch that you see. So I wasn't trying to hide them like the hidden stitch. I was letting them show, but I was doing them spaced pretty far apart. Still gives you that texture, but it's, you know, less stitches. And then on this side, I went this other direction just to mix it up. And I used this again because I don't have a floss, embroidery floss color that was right. I wanted it to kind of not stand out too much, but have that kind of tan color of the background. You can see the texture, but the color isn't in your face. And then I was going to switch to blue here, but I decided because the text is kind of that same color that I would just go ahead and make it easy on myself and do all of the stitching in the same thread, just to keep it easy. So all of this whole section is done going this way. And again, I just used that running stitch or canvas stitch, and I made them about the same length as these stitches, but I put them closer together. So where this one might be, you know, 2 or 3 stitch lengths apart, this is maybe just 2 stitch lengths apart. And that just kind of, you can see from the back a little bit better how the distance is. So it's a nice way to have my stitching be visible, but it's in the background. It's not in your face because I didn't use too much of a contrasting color. So the other thing that you can do next when you're doing this is, now I kind of maybe want to lay out my next layer. I've got my backing stitch to my front. And this is where you might want to add some patches of other fabric. I haven't thought about that too much, but I did grab this. I found this in my bin. This is a piece of cheesecloth or scrim, just kind of a gauzy fabric. And you can see that I printed on it in the same manner that I showed in the last video with the sticker paper, especially something this thready and loose. You really want something to be stuck down really nice so it doesn't get stuck in your printer, but it works the same way. And this is kind of nice because you can see it's something that I used in the book. The print that I did was the same that I used for this liner paper. So it's just basically a fabric, a gauzy fabric with this. So it kind of coordinates nicely with my journal. So if I wanted to take little patches of this or, you know, anything else, maybe I had some scraps, you know, from when I printed the cover fabric. This is a little dark. I would maybe distress this up some more by spritzing on it. And let's see if I grab some scrap of something so that I don't get this on my mat. I would normally be working on my glass mat, but you can just, you know, put some water drops on this. And you can see the ink coming off because it was done on my printer. So if I take I don't want to get this on anything, so I want to be careful. But if I take my heat gun, and I will silence this so you don't have to hear this, but I'm going to hold it down with something and dry this, you're going to see some of my water stains. So you see what that did? It kind of moved that ink around so that it's not quite so dark. And I got it kind of wet, so it's almost too much. I almost want to see those a little more. So I'm going to just try to do less. See if I can get a piece that I really like. Let's see if you can see those, if my lighting is good. But you can kind of see how you see that edge. So that those water stains will show up a little more. Okay, now it's kind of dark in here. We're having a little fall day with a lot of wind. And it's a little darker. But you can see those water spots now. So in my view from here, it's not as dark as it's showing up on camera, but I'm gonna grab my iron. I think it's warm enough. Now I think you can see that a little bit better. The water spots and how distressed that looks. So that's prettier. It's made my color not as dark as that first print of the fabric. So I could take a piece of that if I wanted and, you know, tear a piece. It's still kind of dark to me, but I think it's probably because that edge is there. So let me see if I can, maybe something I might want to do before that is, let's see. I'm going to see if I can get it just a tiny bit lighter. Yeah, I kind of like that. It's looking a little lighter. And then the other thing that I can do is, if I want to make this interesting, is to take some stamps that go with the theme of my journal. I've had these for a long time, and I have the labels off of it. I will try to find a link for this and put it down below if I can find it. I've had this forever, but it's all in the theme. So it might be kind of fun to take, you know, some of these stamps and stamp this fabric, and you probably want to use archival ink to do that. I'll do a few different things. Maybe I'll do a stamp, and then I can use that part. It's kind of black. But let's see. That didn't show up very well. I need to work on something hard here. Those didn't work out very well because I'm working on my mat. I need to be on a harder surface, so I'm just going to lay this here and see if I can get a better imprint, maybe of this. So I can tear, you know, those off and just have them be an underlayer. They don't have to be perfect because they're probably going to get covered up with some stitching anyway. So what else do I have? Okay, so just something like that. You can stamp some fabric, scraps, and add those. So this is on a blue background. I don't know that I'm going to end up liking these and want to use them, but maybe I have a piece of something here on my desk that I can also do, you know, something that's lighter. So maybe I have this piece. Let's see. Oh, this is the same color. If I stamped that, that would actually be nice. Or a piece of this. I don't really want to tear this up though. I'll have to dig around here and see what I have, but that actually might be nice. Do something. Maybe I'll use my ground espresso. So I could use one of these, and then it wouldn't be too dark like the black. And I haven't cleaned that, so let's see. So that's nice. Maybe do a couple of these so I'll have them. And that might be nice. That crown, that's pretty. Okay, something like that. So I've used archival ground espresso, and I just did it on a scrap of the same tan fabric that I printed that on. Remember the last video I had that little strip I had to cut off. So that's a great way to use that up. I'll get this out of my way. So I think I like that better than how this blue turned out even. But I could, you know, that might work for something. So I'll throw that in my pile. But I really kind of like something more subtle, I think. And then let the embroidery, if I use colors, let those stand out more. So I can, let's see if I can tear these. It's kind of thin. A skinny strip is kind of harder to tear. But I kind of like those raw edges. Just kind of want to mess that up a little bit. And I don't care that it's the whole thing or portion, but that's kind of, you know, a nice little addition in this one. That might be too literal to put the crown on her head, but maybe not. That's kind of cute in a way. And I wouldn't put that there, but I like that there. But this could go here. You know, because you're not going to see them. I know I'm kind of laying it out how I would if I was seeing this all together. Rarely is that book going to be open that way. You know, I'm going to see it like this, the spine, or I'm going to see this, or I'm going to see this. So that's what I try to keep in mind as I'm doing the layout of adding things, you know, and like I want to put maybe some flowers there. I could add that there just to kind of cover up some of that wallpaper. And I see that I'm not totally in the frame. There you go. So you kind of just lay out some different things. You know, I'm going to see that this way. Maybe I have some flowers going up. Don't know what I'm going to do here. But that's also kind of an interesting thing. So let's try to tear that. This is going to be super hard. I think I just need to cut it. This kind of fabric is not the easiest to tear. If you have to tear a big piece, it works, but smaller pieces, not always. Now, unless these little frayed things get stitched in there, I sometimes end up cutting them off just because they don't make sense, you know, in the big scheme of things. Let's see, where's my book? Or maybe it overlaps the corner. That's kind of nice. And then do something else here. Yep, I kind of like that. So it's kind of nice to overlap flat things there because you can. I could do that here too. And that's actually kind of nice. So maybe I put those there closer in so they overlap the corners. So if I see those there, that kind of gives me my next layer, which is, you know, adding things on. The other thing that could come with this layer is adding on some flat lace, that sort of thing. But that can also come later. So maybe I'm just looking at these patches and I want to put them on. And I need to decide if I want to use a contrasting color or a similar color, or start bringing in, you know, just any kind of color. So, you know, at the end of the day, this might end up getting covered up too, because I may put, you know, vines and flowers or buttons or something in my last layer that ends up, you know, coming into play there. So I don't know. This is a darker color, which would barely be in the foreground. As far as if I'm adding flowers, this would stand up more. If I have it in the background and it starts to get covered up, you might not notice it, but it may just be more distracting. I did that kind of in here just so you can see there is some blue here, and you see that I used it to stitch on a patch, but now it's kind of buried. So it didn't really do a lot here. I could have as easily used something that was a lighter color. I think this is actually a little bit lighter than this one. So that it's kind of lightest in the back, mid-ranges next layer, darker colors in the final stitching, and it kind of, if it makes sense, it will kind of be like a collage. It will put things in the background and bring things to the front. So I think for this, maybe I have these little scraps that were sitting here. Maybe I use a color, you know, a different color, but something that'll show up but not be too in your face. It's kind of a color that's in this. And this is just one strand, so it's going to be kind of subtle. I don't know if you could see that or not. You kind of get the idea. So I don't really know, you know, I don't have a big plan. I have cantha stitches going this way. So I think I almost just want to do running stitches this way just to get it on. I could just do around the edges and not do the whole in the center. I could just do something, you know, just to get it onto there and not worry about the whole thing. But I almost kind of like the idea of cantha going all the way back and forth. So I think I'm going to do that. These, I kind of know where I want them. This one's upside down, so maybe put it right side up. And I am going to use some little pins and hopefully not have them in my way. The other thing you can do is if you don't want to put pins on it and you need to work on something else, is just take a photo with your phone. Mine's being used to record, so I can't do that. But take a photo, and then that way you don't have to remember where you had everything. But I'm going to pin these on here and hopefully not poke myself. I'm going to stay zoomed in. I know you didn't see all of that, but it'll be easier for you to watch me stitch, and I need to see where I need to be here. My grandma's little knot, so if you've not watched me do this, I know everyone has their own way of doing this, but I just get in frame here. Wrap this around my finger and just twist it, grab it with my middle finger and pull it down, and that just created my knot. And then I'm going to start from the back, and I'll just make kind of small stitches, not huge. I just want to get this on, and like I said, I may end up cutting some of this off if it just ends up being too tatty and in my way. Okay, I'm going to see what I'm doing here. Doing the slow stitch stuff with all the patchiness is so up my alley. You know, everybody has their certain style of things that they're drawn to. I have always, I see pictures of myself even as a little girl, and I'm wearing embroidered shirts with embroidery on the yoke, or I always liked things with patches, patching my jean, you know, patching things, using up all my little scraps, you know, don't want to throw anything away. I got that definitely from my grandmother. But that's what happens. You grow up with people who were raised in a depression era, you know. You learn not to waste things. You want to use up every little bit. And the slow stitching whole deal is, for me, perfect for that. Of course, then I end up with baskets and baskets of scrappy things. But you know what? When you work on a project, it's fun to dig through your things, and you find things you forgot you had. And that's where cleaning up my studio is always fun, because I find things that I set aside to work on later and totally forget I had things. And so it's kind of discovering it again. But it makes for a fun creative workshop, because you know you can pretty much find anything in here. It's always been a fun thing with when my son was a kid. He could come in and ask for the most random thing, and I would probably have it. And so he actually did things like, you know, as a teenager, making his own guitar strap out of, you know, some old jeans and leather pieces or whatever random stuff that I had. And he was so proud of himself, you know, that he made this thing. So at least I rubbed off on him a little bit. And now my adopted granddaughters were here last weekend and working on their costumes, just some little accessory things. But Dara wanted a fairy headpiece kind of thing. And between my jewelry making materials and just silk flowers and ribbon and different things, rhinestones, we made a really pretty little headpiece for her. I call them adopted. They're not really adopted. It's kind of like when you find friends and you make them your family. I don't have any grandchildren, so we decided we would just find our own. So they are just our adopted family now. Let's see. Okay, so I have my first little added patch with just some little stitching on it. And then I'll go ahead and add these on. I won't do this on camera because it'll take too long, but at least you can see where I'm heading with that one. Now, where's the other one that I want to work on? This is my other one. The idea that I had, I haven't thought about any of this. I could do the same thing and add some patches of different fabric on this. I don't know what that will be yet. So I think what I do know I want to do is I want to make this more of an applique looking flower as my focal point on this one. So one thing I did is I went and dug through some fabrics. I didn't have a lot of green. I had this, which is a really nice, thick, heavy fabric. And I thought this would make at least part of the leaves. It may be too dark. I'm going to have to balance it by putting some darker things up here, I think. But I'm going to cut some shapes out just to see, like maybe where they are darker anyway. So I don't know. I could kind of try to draw them with this pen, the kind of the shape that I think they are. I'm thinking about just doing like half a leaf in one and half the leaf in the other fabric. So if I kind of, I don't know if this is going to show up, but if I kind of do this kind of shape, then that could go on one. I love it when my watch wants me to stand up when I've been standing the whole time. I don't know how to fix that. Okay, but that is kind of cute. Hope you can see that. So I'm going to do that on, maybe all of these do, at least on a part of them. So maybe I do this whole leaf that and stitch it in the center. So I just kind of want to maybe get a piece that fits and kind of go like that. Doesn't need to be exact. I just want to cover the part you see. So that's kind of leaf shaped. Could maybe make this a little more rounded. Okay, that and that one. Maybe I do this half of this one. Let's see. If I lay that there. I know you can't see my lines very good. I can barely see them, but I just kind of want, oops, sorry, a rough idea. And then I can fine tune it. So I have this one going here. This one. Let's see. Close enough. I kind of like that. Oops. And same with here, I need to do those. Let's see. Okay, so I have those leaves, let's see. And then I had this other fabric, a scrap, well, this was a valance that I had made at one time. And it's got some fabric that's not really green, but I like it with this. It really goes nicely. It's kind of a green color, I guess. So I'm thinking I might use part of that. And the other thing on this is it has these leaves. So I could actually just put another leaf on top of a leaf. That's kind of weird. But it gives me the right, maybe a different color, different texture of fabric. So I'm not sure. I kind of like this plaid. So let me do some pieces and see if I like how that looks. I don't know if I'm going to or not, but let's see. So this leaf part would be and go not in the frame, sorry. Trying to look at my something like that. I don't know. Let's see. It's kind of that waddle and loop kind of look. This is pretty thick and this is not. So maybe I have to try to find another fabric that's a little bit thicker. I don't think I have anything green. Or I just stitch this down and make this appear thicker by filling it with French knots or something. Maybe I use... and I do just half my leaves with the fabric and leave the other half like they are. I kind of like that there, but I kind of need a piece of that here. So maybe I do one of these. I kind of, this blended too close. This over here is too close to this color. It just didn't show up enough. But over here, it shows up a little bit more, if you can see what I mean there. So maybe if I do a piece here, it would show up enough. So let's try that. Let me cut. I'm gonna use these big scissors because they cut a little bit better. So I need that one. These again are my Tim Holtz scissors that I have not had for very long, but I really like them. So let's see. Yeah, that stands out a little bit more. It just didn't fit in here. So maybe if I had went like this, used that on that side, then I could have used it on this side. That looks better also. But I don't know if I like that. Don't mind it. But then I would want to put this one here to put another piece there. But I don't mind that because actually if you look at that from your distance, these three leaves being the distance they are kind of look like a thing, right? And having that plaid one here would be nice. And then maybe I do another one of these over there. Okay, so I'm going to do this here again, this here, and I need a piece there. I'm doing this backwards from what I'm seeing. Kind of like that, a little bit smaller. Yeah, I like that. You see that? And then I would need another one of these. You're just covering something up. There, I like that a lot. Okay, love those scissors. So I need to stitch these all on. And again, I think I'm gonna do maybe this little one, the one that's gonna sit further back. These are darker and thicker. They're gonna sit more forward. So I think I'm gonna sew down these first. And I do think I want my stitching to show, and I want it to be more darker, like one of the colors in this. or something darker so that they show up as stitches. Just, I want them to show up. These are not quite the right color. I do like this color more. Let's see what else I have. This is a really pretty color. This is 645, but it's maybe not enough contrast. You know, it's going to show up, but maybe not enough. But I like that a lot. I might want to use that somewhere. I think this one, To My Eye, is pretty. Again, it doesn't show up a ton, but it's going to show up better than that one, I think. This one's also really good. This one's more olive. I kind of like this one. Okay. I don't know if you could see what I was doing there, looking at my greens, but I'm going to end up using this one. It has more of an olive color, a little yellow in it. 3051 is the number. And I think that's what I'm going to use to stitch these down. So I'm going to, wish I had my camera, but I'm just going to have to remember where these are. So I'll have to look back at my video if I forget. Oh, I need to cut this one still too. See, kind of good to make it a little bigger than you think you need it and then trim it down. But do I like these two close together like that? Not so much. So try this and that. Then that blends too much to that. So this like this and this here. It's the nice thing about leaves. You flip them over and they can work. That is maybe better. And which way? Like so. Yeah, I think that looks better. Okay. Take two. This is a little big. I need to trim this a little bit, I think. Better. Better. They don't have to be perfect, okay? So let's do that. I'm going to stitch the little ones down first. I do like that one to be its own leaf. And we're going to use this thread. And I think I'm going to use several layers of it. So help me remember, this is on top, this is on top. Maybe if I kind of laid them out like they go. I know you can't see this, but I'm trying to lay them out kind of where they go on my mat up top, out of my way. These are all on the bottom half of the leaf. And then that makes sense too, you know, shadow, from a shadow standpoint, all the light ones are on the bottom and all the dark ones are on the top, depending on which way the light's coming, this way, I guess. So that's what we'll do. And I think for this, I'll use 3 strands. Okay, I'm going to sit down for this. I hope I don't get my head in the shot and I stay in frame. Where are we here? I'm going to pull this up. I'll stand up if I think I've missed here. But let's start with the bottom one, because I don't think I'm in the frame. Okay. I'm going to go along this top edge first. I think it's going to be easier. And I'm just doing little straight stitches across. and it's kind of coming off the bottom. I don't mind that. I just have to find a clever way to make sure it stays attached. And I'm pulling all these little threads out of there. Trying to do this so you can see and keep getting out of frame. So I'm not actually going to be I'm not catching anything back here because I'm on the fringe, but I am going to come through kind of like a blanket stitch, and just so at least it's attached on the inside of the leaf. Same here, I'm just going to come over. Like so. Oops, sorry if you can see that. I'm just kind of doing sort of like a blankety thing here where I'm not catching anything under there, but I'm coming over. And then get my little fringes out. Okay, so that's my first one. And then let's see, maybe I use this same thread while I'm still right here and put this one on. That way you kind of get an idea what this is going to look like. And then I'll continue on off camera and get all those leaves put on, I think. So if I do this one here, now I could do the same type of stitch, or I could do like a little running stitch so you see it on top of this. But I kind of just like this little, if I would have been smart, I could have done these together. But actually, you know what? I don't mind that. I think I'll do them, and I'll kind of do them in between. So they kind of end up looking like a feather stitch, sort of. So I think my fabric is really fraying. But I think I'll go over here. And so my stitch is kind of at an angle. I don't know if you could see that. My contrast is not very good. So the stitch is right there because my lighting is horrible. So I could use maybe more of a color than this. It really kind of, it's not going to stand out very much. If I used a lighter color, it would. That's too light. And I don't really have anything in between, so I'm going to go ahead and use this, I think, and just see how it goes. So I'm going to come back in here. And some really rough stitching here. But I don't mind. It's actually, you can't see this very well, but I do. Let's see if you can see that. Really uneven, random, even the angles that they're going. And I actually really kind of like that, because the whole thing is, it makes it kind of look really imperfect and rustic, and just, I like that. My grungy stuff. Very Frankenstein. Okay. And I think I'll do these more even like I did around this side, but I really kind of like how that's showing up there. Might have even been kind of nice to put another piece, and I may do afterwards. If you see, I know I'm going to do it on this couching, is put another piece of thread in there and do couching, but I may actually even be able to get something and just run it through those stitches after the fact, if that makes sense. I might do that later. Maybe find a different color of green or something thicker, or a yarn, maybe in my yarns, and see if I can thread a needle and run that in between the stitches that are already there for some like backwards couching. But that might be kind of fun. So I think I'll make these a little bit shorter of a stitch. Again, because this other leaf, it's going to be the lighter one. I think I'm not going to stitch that down yet, because I think I want this one to kind of be tucked under there, like so. So I think I need to jump onto this piece and start stitching it. Actually, I can just tuck it under there and continue this stitching and then go back and do this. So if that makes sense, and then I can trim that point off later if I need to. So I think I'm just going to continue here. I'm glad I thought of that. I'm just going to... Oh, don't do it again. Oh, come on. I got a loop there. What did I do? There. Okay, so you see my rustic leaf, and I like that. And then I'll stitch this one down and continue around and get all those leaves stitched down. Now, I'm not going to do this on camera because my back is tired and I want to sit down and put some music on to do this and enjoy myself. So I do want to show you a couple other things, if I can get this out of my way without losing everything. So now that I'm at the end of this video, get rid of all this mess, I'm going to zoom out so I have more room here. And I also work on jewelry, and I mentioned in a couple of videos ago something that I was working on, and it was kind of a teaser, and so I've actually done some now, so I want to show you what I'm doing. I don't have anything finished. I have to work on the chains now, but I have... It was my friend Sandy's birthday, and she made a joke that at her age, she is to the point where she needs to wear a magnifying glass around her neck. So for her birthday, I wanted to make her a magnifying glass necklace. And I happen to have a magnifying glass, like a finding, the pendant part. And so I made her a necklace, and it has a similar or identical chain to this. So I wanted something with lots of color and just simple but artistic that she could wear with everything. And then the magnifier. And she loved it. She wears it all the time. And so she told me, she said, you're going to need to make a bunch of these because I can see so many people needing these. And so I found just some nice magnifying glass, just the rounds. So I was able to find these replacement magnifying glasses, just without anything on them. I couldn't find any pendants, just plain pendants that I liked. That would have been easy. I could have just added a chain, but I didn't find any, but I found these. So I bought 20 of them so I can make some magnifying necklaces. And so I was playing around with some designs, and I started out with this one, which is a little more time consuming, but I needed something that could be a bezel on something that was double-sided and open bezel. So I did this wire wrapped one. I don't know if you can see that very well. But I really like that design. So it's, you know, it takes a bit more time to do this one and to get it to actually work so that the thing will stay in there. But I succeeded, so I'm happy with this design. This one's in bronze. And then this is a little quicker to make. Maybe not as quick as you'd think, but I also really like it. And it is braiding some wire and then making another open bezel. This one's in copper. This is the same style in bronze. If you can see those difference in color, just very slightly. I know this lighting is so bad today. I need to get a better light, but copper and bronze. And then this one is also in bronze. So I've done these, and now I need to do chains for them. But I'm going to try to get some of these done and put in my Etsy shop, because I think, you know, I think my friend is not the only one that needs this. So I'll have those. And then I've been cleaning off my desk, my jewelry bench, and I found a couple more of these Tree of Life pendants that I had started and not finished. I really enjoy sitting and just working on these at night too. This is something I can sit and do watching TV, and it's just kind of very repetitive work to do this. So this one is in peridot, which is my birthstone, and aquamarine. So I have these two. I also need to do some kind of chains for those, but these are just some of the type of wire wrapped things that I have done. So I have those I'm going to be working on still. So if you don't hear from me for a bit with a video, it's probably because I'm doing that. Oh, I wanted to show you one more thing. If I were to want to do flowers or something on this, I have shown you in the past this pen. If you want to do something and you're not sure about how it's going to look, you can either photocopy your design onto paper and then draw on it, you know, and with a pencil even, and just erase or change your mind or whatever. But once you want to put it onto your actual design, you can use this Pilot friction pen, and it's erasable with heat. So I'm just going to show you, if I were to say, oh, I think I want a vine and some flowers here. So I can think, okay, maybe I wanted her arm to be kind of a vine too. So maybe I want some this way, and I want it to come up, or I want it to look like she's holding balloons or something. I could maybe start it here and draw like it's coming through her hand. Because remember, this is just going to be the front of my book. And then maybe I want to even pull out my book so I can kind of see where I'm at here. Ouch. Poking myself. And then I can kind of just draw where I think I might want this vine to go. You know, kind of shape. And then I can maybe, you know, roughly draw in flowers where I'm thinking I might want flowers or leaves or anything like that, okay? So I'm going to roughly do it, or maybe I want a curly-Q thing here, a spirally thing. You know, this is going to be more like some kind of design. Maybe that's satin stitch in there, here, and then it goes off this way. So you can draw whatever you want right onto your fabric. And I'll let you see that a little closer. You see, I've made pen mark all over my fabric. Well, say I change my mind and I don't like that. Let's see if my iron is warm enough yet. If I don't like that and I want to do something different, I'm just going to go over it with my iron. And that was in real time. It just disappeared. So that's how that works. You can just draw, change your mind or whatever with that pen. So I've never shown exactly how it works. So now I have. So I'll put a link. I know there's a link down below for that, and that's a handy thing to have. Okay, and the one last thing that I had mentioned, let me scoot you out here again, is I was gifted something that I want to share, I think, because I'll never use all of these myself. So my friend Connie at Anthology in Templeton, California, if you have not been there, she has the cutest little shop that's a house, and then she has vintage things and cute clothing and just all kinds of stuff. She's always so sweet. She knows I do all kinds of things, and so whenever I always make a point to pop into her store and buy something, because the most compliments I get on some top I'm wearing or something, it's usually something I bought from her. So I always pop in there when I'm visiting, and she always has a bag or a box or something of things to give me because she knows that I will use them or share them with others. And so I have maybe close to a dozen of these Pollyanna books. They're all different years. So some of them are like 1919, 1916. Some of them are a little newer, 1950s or 1940s. And they're all in different sorts of condition. So I have a bunch of them. I'm never going to use them all. They were discarded from a library. Some of them are falling apart like this one. But it's a book that if you are just learning to do things with altered books, or, you know, need an old book just for the old book page, because this has a really nice patina, as you can see. Some of the pages are probably kind of brittle, but they're great for collage. So I want to just give these away. If you want to pay for shipping, that would be great. So if you would like a book, and just, I'm guessing shipping's probably going to be less than $5. I'll have to know where you are, I guess, to see. So please, just the United States, because otherwise it's really kind of not worth it. So if you're willing to spend shipping $5 or less, whatever I can get it for, I do get discounted shipping. So let me know, and I will put it in one of these envelopes, these bubble envelopes, and send it to you. I may put another little treat in there of some kind of, you know, something, scraps of something that I have. So since I'm shipping anyway. So I weighed them, and they weighed about, I want to say 12.5 ounces. So you can kind of calculate. I'm in Nevada. 89460 is my zip code. So if you want to calculate what the shipping is to get an idea, you can do that ahead before you ask for them. And I will send you a package with a book in it, and then you cannot feel guilty about tearing it apart and using the covers to make this French journal that we're making, or maybe the one that you received, the spine is in good shape, and you can just take the whole thing out and reuse the cover, and then you have all these book pages to use for things. So anyway, I think that's just something I want to share, the wealth of books that I have now in my stash. So leave a comment down below if you're interested in one, and have a great rest of your day. Now go make something. Bye.